It is a minute or two till start time. Good to see everyone. We'll be taking up with lesson 25 this morning as we are nearing the crucifixion of Jesus. This is on his trials. Does anyone by chance need a copy of lesson 25? As we've said, a greater portion of the four gospel accounts deal with this last week of Jesus' life than they do any other part. We have more details of that, and it's been a while since I had personally devoted time to the Gospels, the study of that, and I had never personally made a great effort to try to put things in chronological order, but these trials and the events that took place, his post-resurrection appearances, it's quite baffling, but it's very rewarding to look at it, go back and forth from Matthew to Luke to John and Mark and some other places at times, such as 1 Corinthians, which mention his post-resurrection experiences. We'll get to that, Lord's willing, Wednesday, but it's very rewarding to study these things, and it's overwhelming emotionally as we look at Jesus' life. Putting ourselves in that position as far as just dealing with opposition on a daily basis. The stress, the human side, the stress that he dealt with all his life, especially when he in his ministry, those last 3.5 years. It's unreal how he could, as we would think, how he could keep his sanity. But he gave us an example to follow. We see from him that it wasn't that he was some Superman. He relied upon the help that we have. All of us have the same help Jesus had. That's the Father in heaven. His prayers, it puts me to shame. I don't know how you stack your prayer life up against Jesus. But that's one thing this quarter that I have just, how often he prayed, how intensely he prayed, and the benefit of prayer. He trusted in his Father. Yes, he knew what the Father had prophesied through the prophets. We have that same knowledge. It's just a matter of us looking at it regularly enough to keep ourselves reminded that when we are in tense situations, when we are in situations that we fear, we think of possible death or tragedy, we have a Father in heaven. We have an advocate with him. So a lot of lessons to learn from that. So I hope you're enjoying the class. We have 2 more lessons, and next Sunday we'll wind it up, and if we don't by chance finish Wednesday, and I'm trying to really tackle the post-resurrection appearances of Jesus and put them in chronological order, and we may have a little bit left over from that, but I do hope to try to have something to offer you for your studies for that, and I encourage you to look at the 4 gospel accounts and in 1 Corinthians 15 about what is said about Jesus' appearances, and it will add to your appreciation of how he responded and why he responded that way, as we've seen. Okay? I've asked Jackson to lead us in an opening prayer. Jackson, let us bow our heads as Jackson leads our prayer. Thank you.
Son, who you said he was willing to undergo the things that we're about to read about. We pray that we apply these things and learn from these things and use it to make ourselves better Christians and better examples of Christ to those around us. We pray that we be attentive and be willing to dig in and challenge ourselves with these things. And we pray that we use this time to better ourselves as Christians. We pray for our services today. We pray for this group here. We pray that we would encourage others and be a light to those around us.
Amen. Okay. Thus far, the trial chronology. Jesus was taken to Annas first, was he not? Then he was taken to Caiaphas, and there, in the presence of Caiaphas, we also had the council, or AKA the Sanhedrin, and that's where we left off with Jesus being before the Sanhedrin, and we talked about his response to them, and so we open up this morning with question 2 on the third stage of the Jewish trial. Upon hearing Jesus' response, what does the council do with Jesus? They take him to Caiaphas. Caiaphas is, what's his position? Pardon? Excuse me. He's with Caiaphas. I meant Pilate. What's Pilate's position? He is the governor. Now, these are Roman officials. We've had the Jewish trial, and he's now about to be sent before a Roman governor, a Roman official, and as we're going to see, they will mention later on that they can condemn him by Jewish law. One of the big things that he's accused of is blasphemy, and the Moses law stipulated the penalty for blasphemy was death. So that's what they're using. But as we're going to see, they make a statement when they go to Pilate, our law does not permit us to do this. Roman law had kindly overruled. They would allow the Jews to do their law things, but the Romans had the authority right now to kill. And so they're appealing to the Roman authorities based upon what they have said about their law. But he's brought before Pilate. I just want to mention from Luke's account, it was more detailed. And what day of the week is this now? I want to just keep us reminded of that. What day of the week is this? Thursday. It was called the day before what? What was the day before the preparation? What was that? What day of the week was that? When did they eat the Passover is what I'm trying to ask. Has Jesus not already ate the Passover? Keep that in mind, because later on, these Jewish leaders, when they bring him to Pilate, they are very urgent. Let's get this over with. Let's get this over with. And I think Luke's response brings out, or Luke's account, that they won't go into where Pilate is. They won't go into this area because it's a Gentile area. And the statement is made they didn't want to defile themselves, so that would prevent them from eating the Passover. So that's why I bring out it's important as you study this, and you can make your notes to look at it individually. The Passover was eaten on the 14th day of the month. That is on Thursday. And so Friday is about to dawn. It's getting late on the 14th is coming to an end. Now their time does not go from midnight. It starts when? So 6 p.m. Thursday to 6 p.m. Friday is when the Passover is to be eaten. Now, Jesus and his apostles at the Last Supper, when he instituted the Lord's Supper after they had eaten the Passover, so we're already that evening on Thursday. It's going to end, okay, and Friday will start. They have to get this done so that they can eat the Passover before Thursday switches to Friday. You understand that? Just keep that in mind. So they are in an urgent state of mind to get Pilate to render a decision. They don't want this drug out. So Luke 22, as soon as it was day, this is beginning at verse 66, as soon as it was day, the assembly of the elders and of the people were gathered together, both the chief priests and scribes, and they led Jesus away into their council, saying, If thou art the Christ, tell us. But he said unto them, If I tell you, you will not believe, and if I ask you, you will not answer. But henceforth shall the Son of Man be seated at the right hand of the power of God. And they all said, Art thou the Son of God? And he said unto them, You say that I am. And they said, What further need have we of witness? For we ourselves have heard from his own mouth. And the whole company rose up and brought him to Pilate. They basically say the same thing later. Okay? And so they bring him to, they're in what's called the auditorium, and it is early. This is John 18, verse 28. But they themselves, speaking of the council, entered not into the auditorium that they might not be defiled, but might eat the Passover. What do you find ironic about their concern? Oh, we have to eat the Passover. We have to eat the Passover. We've got to keep the Passover. If we don't, we'll be in trouble with God. But what are they in the process of doing? Committing murder. But we've got to keep the Passover. What would be a parallel today of such hypocrisy? Being involved in something as hideous as murder, but I need to go to church. Can't miss church. There's a lot of lessons that we can learn from that. How is our life, and does it affect our assembling? Does it have a bearing on the approval, or Carol, you're nodding your head. Let me hear from you. So I just want to, food for thought, Let's not be so rough on them to think that, boy, I'd never stoop that low. We need to look at our lives. Are we a type of a member of a Sanhedrin? Going to church does not fix things. Actually, it makes our worship an abomination, does it not? So that was one lesson that I just wanted to bring out from that. Okay, so he's taken to Pilate, and this now begins the first stage of the Roman trial, okay? Jesus is before Pilate for the first time. He's going to be before him again because Pilate's going to send him to who? Herod does not do what Pilate hopes he would do. He sends him back to Pilate. And they had been, as we're going to see, at odds with one another, but now they kind of become, they bury the hatchet. And we'll see about that a little bit later. So he's before Pilate. What question did Pilate ask of Jesus? Same question that he had been asked, hadn't it? Go ahead, Michael. Are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus answered, what? How did Jesus answer? Sort of. He kind of asked Pilate a question. Are you asking me this? This is John 8, the 18th chapter, by the way. Sayest thou this of thyself, or did others tell it thee concerning me? What's the significance of that statement?
Do you believe that I am, or did somebody say that?
Are you just asking me because you heard it? Notice how Jesus always points, what's your conviction? What's your personal conviction about me? Why would you ask me such a question? Is it just... Now Herod, we know, Herod had not met him, had he? He had heard a lot about him, and he was anxious to get to meet Jesus. Pilate had knowledge of him, okay? So Pilate answered Jesus when Jesus said, sayest thou this of thyself, or did others tell thee concerning me? Pilate answered, am I a Jew? Your own nation and chief priests delivered you to me. What have you done? So there's a lot of questions, not just one question that Pilate asked. Art thou the king of the Jews, as Michael pointed out? What have you done? Verse 34 of John 18, Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. If it was, then would my servants fight that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from hence. Pilate asked a third question, verse 37. Art thou then a king? And Jesus said, thou sayest I am a king. To this end was I born, to this end am I come into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. For everyone that is of the truth hears my voice. And Pilate asked another question. What is it? What do you make of Pilate? So we kind of have this second question answered. We've got the conversation back and forth between Jesus and Pilate. We see Jesus' response. Again, just take note. Jesus, to my knowledge, in the Bible, never answered a question with just one word. Yes. No. He made you think. And it's probably why a lot of people were afraid to engage in conversation with him and wouldn't ask him a lot of questions, because he brought out the real you. Did it?
He was always concerned with that person's soul. Like, even that stands out to me in this conversation with Pilate. He's not testing Pilate. To me, he's concerned with whether or not Pilate believes, instead of being concerned with his own. He doesn't answer any questions that have to do with saving himself. He answers questions that have to do with saving the other person's soul.
That's a powerful statement. Did you have more? Tara said he never answered a question with a view to saving himself, but he was concerned with saving others. For us, in talking with people, in our interaction with people, in our evangelism, personal evangelism. We need to learn from Jesus. Choose our questions. Choose our responses wisely. People will always be asking us, why do you do this? Do you believe that? Why don't you do this? They are putting us on the offensive. Or they're on the offensive wanting us to defend. We need to do as Jesus. Ask them questions. That's wise evangelism. But it's, as Tara pointed out, don't just pose a question to try to stump them. Ask a question with the view to getting them to investigate their soul in view of the Scriptures. Very good point. Anything else?
You asked about Pilate. I've always felt like he was conflicted. And that question at the end, like, what is truth? To me, is almost like he's saying that to himself. Like, he's wrestling with these things. And when he asks that question, what is truth, he's actually asking, not asking Jesus to explain what is truth, but almost like, what's happening? I've often wondered what happened with Pilate after all of this. We're not told, but he seems to be sincere in claiming Jesus' innocence and knowing that he's not guilty and wanting to release him. And we know that his wife had that dream and warned him about Jesus, about what he was going to do, warned him about what to do with Jesus. So I'm kind of empathic for him because he seems like a Romans 7 kind of conflicted in his heart.
It's interesting, he gets 2 times with Jesus. Why did he send him to Herod? We said, well, in the conversation, he finds out he's from Galilee. And, well, oh, that's Herod's jurisdiction. And incidentally, be looking at this. When Mary and the women go to the tomb, if I understand the first encounter, it's with angels. What do they tell the women to do? But go somewhere. The Lord will meet you where? In Galilee. In Galilee. Look up how far was. You got the province of Judea, to the north of that Samaria, to the north of that Galilee, where the Sea of Galilee or the Sea of Tiberias. Jesus is going to appear there. I think 7 of the apostles are fishing, and he meets them. Jesus, when he does meet with the apostles, he tells them, there's a designated mountain you go to in Galilee, and I will meet you there. How far was Galilee from Jerusalem? Personally, I'd never, if I look at it, depending upon the one map that I usually use, the north end of Galilee is where Capernaum is. It says Capernaum is 90 miles from Jerusalem. 90 miles. Jesus is crucified in Jerusalem. He tells the women, an angel does, and Jesus does too, tell my brethren to go to Galilee and I will meet them there. 90 miles away. Had you ever noticed or caught that? See what you can figure or come up with as to why so far from Jerusalem. And then he will tell them, as the Gospels come to a close, tarry ye in Jerusalem until you be endued with power from on high. So they are to go back to Jerusalem after he ascends and wait for the Holy Spirit to fall upon them. You could make a 10-mile-a-day walk. Give you an idea. How far would they be traveling? To the region of Galilee. And even if they went to the southern part, we don't know. Does any of you know where this mountain was that he specified? So just some, like I say, some very interesting things. But we have that. So the second stage now we move to the Roman trial. Jesus is before Herod. Pilate sends him to Herod because he has learned Jesus was a Galilean, and that's Herod's jurisdiction. Herod happens to be in Jerusalem at this time, and so Herod questions him. And what was Jesus' reaction to Herod's question? Herod asked him a lot of questions. What did Jesus reply? He wouldn't reply to Herod. You recall from Isaiah chapter 53, verse 7, a prophecy about Christ, the Christ. He was oppressed, yet when he was afflicted, he opened not his mouth, as a lamb that was led to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. Any thoughts on why Jesus would not answer anything to Herod? I know we're not touching on a lot of what went on with that visit. Again, Herod had never met Jesus. Who was it that had put John the Baptist, the baptizer, in prison and had him beheaded? Who did Jesus call? Go tell that fox. Who was it that the temple or the money that questioned it? Does your master pay taxes? That was Herod's jurisdiction. Okay, so I don't know that we're told specifically anything other than what we could just divulge by necessary inference. But Jesus does not answer Herod. So as a result, what does Herod and his cohort of soldiers, or whatever you want to call them, what do they do with Jesus? Before that, before they send him back to Pilate, Luke 23, verse 11, they set Jesus at naught and mocked him, arrayed him in gorgeous apparel, and sent him back to Pilate. They made a mockery of his supposedly regal, "You're king?" Okay. So it was all insincere stuff. And then, as Paul said, Herod sends him back to Pilate. So from this, Pilate is now faced with making a decision. The Jewish mass, but before we leave Herod, does Herod find reason to find Jesus guilty? Does Herod believe Jesus is worthy of death?
Pilate says that Pilate sent him there was because he thought it was a win-win situation. I sent him to Herod, and he gets to pronounce something, where he sends him back, and he finds nothing. He knows how Herod's not going to find anything. Verse 15 of Luke 23, in verse 14, no guiltless man is already charged with you against him, and so has Herod. For he sent him back to us, nothing deserving of death has been done by him. So I guess Pilate was hoping with the beatings and two different high powers there saying he doesn't deserve it, that would calm the people.
Whose wife was troubled about Jesus? Had a dream. What was her advice or counsel? have thou nothing to do with this innocent man. So we've got Pilate's wife, he's innocent. Herod, he's innocent. Pilate, he's innocent. So who has the power to, and again they have what is termed, he tells them, there's this custom surrounding this week of unleavened bread. What is this custom that's in effect that wasn't in effect in the day that Moses instituted this? You have a custom that I release a prisoner or I release someone to you. Who do you want? This Jesus or Barabbas? It was a custom of the Jews. He tried that, okay? But they obviously, he was, as he says, he was trying to, he went out and before them and performed this little ritual. He says, I've washed my hands of this matter. I find nothing worthy of death. I will scourge him and let him go. And of course, the people are against it. So we find in Matthew 27, verses 26 through 30, then he released unto them Barabbas, but Jesus, he went ahead and scourged Jesus, but he delivered him to be crucified. So the soldiers took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered him unto him the whole band. They stripped him and put on Jesus a scarlet robe. They platted a crown of thorns on his head and put a reed in his right hand. Mockingly, they knelt down before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews! And they spat upon him, took the reed, and smote him on the head. Mark simply says he delivered Jesus after he had scourged him to be crucified. You look at, he's already had this emotional, not just one outburst, but the emotion he had in the garden, what he's going through now. So what happens next? The Bible kind of chronologically takes us away from this scene of Jesus, and it focuses back upon Judas. Judas, of course, had been given money, an agreed upon amount of money. But what wound up happening with this money? Judas he threw the money down in their presence. He went back and said, I've betrayed innocent blood. So you have another one declaring the innocence of Jesus.
It seems like Jesus is not yet on the cross at this point. Is that how we understand the chronology?
Yeah. I don't believe he is.
Yeah.
And so, who dies first, Jesus or Judas? Did you have something else?
No, I'm not sure about the timeline there. I just think it's interesting. Like, what was Judas' expectation when he took the money? Did he expect Jesus to fight his way out?
I've wondered the same thing. It's just like, you can stop this, but
Correct.
I keep drawing upon the many mentions that they didn't understand. They understood not. But after he was risen from the dead, they connected the dots. But
I'd never thought about the timeline there. In Judas's mind, he is not going to stop this. This is going to, at some point you realize like, this is going to happen. It seems like that is kind of lost his, I don't know what the, anyway, that's when he returned and said, I've made a terrible mistake here.
a note that I made in connection with that, it's hard for me, I don't know about you, but it's hard for me, even yet. Remember what Jesus taught in John 15? Unless a seed does what? It cannot bear fruit. It has to die. It's got to die. Victory through death. That's Jesus' way. We cannot bear fruit until we have made up our minds, I'm dying to a life of sin. We try to kind of fence straddle. We've not put all sin to death. We still have some things that we have not died to. This is the beauty of the Roman epistle. Dying to sin. You cannot bear fruit until you die to sin. And that relates to spiritual growth. If you struggle with growth spiritually, and you try to put your finger on, why can't I get over this hump? Check the box on, have I died to my sins? Things I did before I changed masters. Am I still doing some of them? It's a powerful message. And I think that, Michael, to your question, Judas, I think, struggled with, how can you rule if you're dead? He never got there is victory over death. That's what Jesus brings us. But we must die to our sin. Okay? Good point, sir. So,
Verse 6.
okay. Which book you in?
So Matthew 27. Sorry.
Okay.
This goes back to what you said earlier. The Jews are still applying their own law, in essence, acknowledging their own sin,
Yeah.
but saying their sin can't trump using the money that they got in the church treasury for what they paid to betray Jesus,
Yeah.
because it's blood money. So that just how it baffles me that how they're still applying the law of the temple treasury, their law at this time, and they can't put it in church treasury because
Yeah.
it's got blood on it.
Even though that's where it started.
And again, the straining of an ant, swallowing a camel. They are so meticulous over things like this. And we got to eat the Passover. Well, we can't dare put this money in the treasury. Oh, that would be akin to blasphemy. And here they're contemplating murder. But what's their concern about? Keeping themselves pure.
I mean, it is fantastic that they will take the money out of the treasury to pay Judas, but they won't take the money back from him. It is
Exactly.
fantastic.
They'll withdraw for blood, but they can't redeposit that blood money. Interesting. Very good point.
There for us, though, like you were saying before, it's funny when we, we're kind of tongue-in-cheek about what they're doing and that it's ironic, but, we can be guilty of the same, like checking off our boxes,
Exactly.
but not having the attitude, like when you ask what would be parallel today, I have to take the Lord's Supper every Sunday. I have to go take the Lord's Supper, but
Yeah.
I go to church with a bad attitude, or I don't love my brothers and sisters, or I'm absent the rest of the week from helping, encourage the deeper heart issues. And so those things, it's easy to die to a behavior, but it's harder to die to a deep-seated heart issue that separates us from God.
Very good point, and I was really looking for that. Have you ever had the attitude, the mindset, the cup and the cracker? This is a cure-all. This has balanced my books this week. I'm good to go. I partook of the memorial. Absent of examination, but I partook of it. So very good point. And again, the point, this is what Jesus made in his teaching. How is your heart? The external stuff, I don't need your sacrifices. How is your heart's condition? Have you died to sin? That's what's important. Okay, let's move on. I've got a couple more questions. On the way to the cross, interesting, who followed Jesus as he made his way to Calvary? Remember and take note of, as you study next week's or the Wednesday's lesson, the involvement of the women. There followed him, Luke 23:27, a great multitude of people. We don't know the number count, but a great multitude of people and of women who bewailed and lamented him. These women are going to be mentioned not only here in Luke 23:27, they're mentioned again in verse 49, and they're mentioned in verses 55 and 56, and they're going to be mentioned even more. Look at Luke 23:55 and 56. And the women who had come with him out of Galilee followed after and beheld the tomb and how his body was laid, and they returned and prepared spices and ointments. So they go to see where Joseph has his tomb and see how he is, and they're going to go back and prepare and come back the next day. And so we read who was the first to arrive at the tomb. These women. And they had been present. They were there at the cross watching him draw his last breath. So just keep that in mind. What did he say to these women? This is interesting too. I'll flip that one ahead. What did Jesus say to these women, or to the... As we go on, Luke 23, beginning in verse 28. Jesus turning said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, weep for yourselves and your children. For behold, the days are coming in which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bare, the breast that never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. For if they do these things in the green tree, what shall be done in the dry? What did he mean by that last statement? What was the point of this conversation? Is it depicting judgment, a judgment of sorts? You recall a statement made, look at this, in Proverbs 11 and verse 31. Behold, the righteous shall be recompensed in the earth. How much more the wicked and the sinners? And 1 Peter 4:17, it's time for judgment to begin at where? The house of God. If it begins there, what's going to be the end of the ungodly? This is what this language reflects. Strong's Concordance made this observation. If they thus, by the fire of their wrath, treated Christ, the guiltless, the holy, and the fruitful, what's going to be the fate of the perpetrators who are like dry wood compared to Jesus when they are inflicted with the wrath of divine judgment? We understand in the literal sense. You've got a very green piece of wood and a dry piece of wood. You light both. What burns? Yes. But look how the live wood is treated. What do you think is going to happen to dead wood who has less resistance? So the daughters of Jerusalem, he says, don't weep for me, weep for yourselves. It can have application, I think, even to the destruction of Jerusalem, and probably primarily that. But in principle, is it not true of judgment? If judgment begins at the house of God, our judgment is not going to be all pats on the back or the righteous. It's going to begin with us because we are held to that standard. And once it is seen how judgment is upon the people of God, what's going to be the end of all others? And lastly, the crucifixion. What happened when Jesus died? And what caused the temple to be split from top to bottom? Was there 2 earthquakes? There was this earthquake, and many of the tombs were opened. Now, Jesus isn't in a tomb, is he? He's on the cross. But you'll read when Mary and the women come to the tomb, and they've been talking, how are we going to get this big rock moved? And they find the rock gone because what had happened? Another earthquake had rolled it. Okay, it mentions that. So you have that. How did the soldiers make sure that the ones being crucified were dead? Real quickly. And why did they not do it to Jesus? Interesting. When Joseph came to ask for Jesus' body, in Mark's account, Mark chapter 15, when the even was now come, because it was the preparation, that is, the day before, he boldly went into Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus, and Pilate marveled that Jesus was already dead. And he had a centurion verify it, and finding that, yes, sir, he's dead, he grants Joseph possession of the body. So what did they do since they didn't break his legs? And what does that illustrate? How did you... Pardon? Okay. I know we ran through that pretty quick, but Lord's willing, this is our last lesson, lesson 26 for Wednesday. See what you can come up with on it on the chronological of the post-resurrection appearances. Thank you.